All right, so we're in my office now, and I'm going to talk to all of y'all about not just what is going on with Yang Mills, but kind of how we got there and where it's going to go from there. Because as it turns out, the Yang Mills and mass gap millennium problem um, falls directly into all of the research I've already been doing. Um, that's at least the normal way of looking at it. There's a lot of not normal ways of looking at it that are probably more accurate than the normal ways. And one of the things that I have found is, well, let's look at the original proposal, as it were. The original proposal that was posed on Tumblr was that there are people who jump between realities in their sleep using lucid dreaming. They managed to do this precise lucid dreaming by writing code. I'm not really sure how. This is just what I picked up from the post. And they encode the instructions for what dream will be produced whenever they lucid dream, and then from there they explore and they can get all kinds of abilities or see all kinds of different alternate realities where different things happened, or I'm sure there's many things from here. I know that there are people who go be anime characters, and like the thing is, the fictional character thing is a layer of abstraction that I don't really want to get into right here, but I would like people to start looking at the fictional character thing as a layer of abstraction on top of something that's probably happening with identity, or with shifts in reality itself. So, by the way, if you hear strange noises in the background, it's not a gremlin, it's a cat. That's usually the answer at all times, and let's hope that it stays that way. So, all right. I want to get into what it is that I've been looking into the last couple of months, but it's been difficult for me to talk about it. I'll write something out in the Rocket Book, or I'll manage to make an article about it, and that'll be how I get it across, or sometimes I will sketch, but it's been hard for me to talk about. I think that what I have been doing is exploring the way that reality is a multiverse, and how the structure of reality makes that possible. The reason that I have been studying it the way that I've been studying is because I've noticed that as science progresses, in the history of science, usually as science makes a large leap ahead, it's because science is talking to philosophy. As in, well, let's see. I think I can just grab it right over here, huh? There should be a, what's this, Atoms and Strong Fields from a NATO Advanced Study Institute. I know I had somebody's thesis over here, and it's literally in philosophy. Theoretical Chemistry Institute from the University of Wisconsin. 1968. Some rules for variational wave functions. So at this time, quantum physics is theoretical chemistry. It's 1968. We've already got the nuke. And far more than that. But yeah, back in the 40s, Doctor of Philosophy is what you got for being a nuclear physicist. In fact, they may have called it a nuclear chemist at that time. They may not have actually split physics and chemistry yet, because they hadn't invented the field of physics. That was all, physics was just part of chemistry. So I don't want to tunnel too far into that. I've been doing a lot of science research for someone who is an occultist. I swear I've been actually approaching this from an occultist point of view. It's just that I've been trying to research the science of occultism. Whenever occultists in their materials are referring to science, what is the science at the time? and scientists at the time, what were they talking about, and were they talking to occultists? Because I could tell you that in the 70s, there were scientists who were talking to psychics. Jane Roberts, a well-known psychic who died in the late 80s or early 90s, I think somewhere around the mid 80s, yeah. She was regularly talking to someone who was a particle physicist, and they were asking her for essentially what were her ideas on how particles worked. Not because they were, you know, that belly up for ideas, but because nuclear physics was born in the philosophy department. And it's normal to think about the structure of reality philosophically. That's how it's happened before. That's how all the predecessors have done it. And when science builds something, it builds upon its predecessors. Even if it supplants its predecessors, it does so in a way that says, our predecessors built this for us. We will stand upon it, and we will honor it by standing upon it and building the next thing for the next generation to stand upon, for them to build of their own. We know that we're going to be the next rung for the next generation to climb up on and bring themselves upwards. It's always going to be like that. So, the idea is that I may be able to find something in occultism that could help nuclear physics. I talked to my husband, Tiff, about this last year. I started getting this idea. Y'all started seeing me talk about nuclear physics and stuff. Really started getting vocal about it, I think, around October and November. But it's been going for a while. I think the research is really getting somewhere. But let's get to Yang Mills. I didn't think I would be involved in something like this. I've heard of the Millennium Problems, but I skimmed over them because, oh my gosh, just read a summary. They're so dense. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just that they're made for physicists and mathematicians. It's their problems. And so it's kind of hard to solve their problems for them, right? Because I'm not a physicist or a mathematician. But there are things that occultism teaches you that are like higher, no, I'm not even going to say are like. They are higher understandings of math. Pythagoras is an occultist. Platonic solids, that's our brother Plato. Like, the Platohedron is a spiritual construct for many occultists. It's also a piece of geometry made by one of our greatest thinkers and our greatest scientists. Again, philosophy is the science department. It's just thinking in two different ways. So a lot of people don't really read the books that I read for this purpose. They're usually reading a book on black magic to find out how to do something to someone they don't like or get more money. Like, I swear, those are usually the only two things. Sometimes it's also love spells, but otherwise, no one really looks to demons for explaining mathematics. Usually because the people who find out how to summon demons aren't the same people who know much about mathematics. I'm not slamming them, it's just that I've noticed that there's, the people who are big nerds and engineers, they don't seem to be the same people who are learning how to summon demons. For whatever reason. The thing is that all of this time, I've actually been a software engineer. I coded web applications and have been doing so since 2008. Before then, I was a graphic designer designing websites. I jumped from design to code. I've always been doing some sort of programming since I was a teenager. Which was also the same time I got into the occult. So, for me, programming and occultism kind of go hand in hand, especially since I got into occult right at the same time as a sort of techno-mage kind of chaos magic was being born on the internet. A very, very 90s sort of techno majory. Um, and it kind of just impressed upon me that computers are magic. Like, the internet is just magically connecting us with so many things out there, and we can actually use it as an occult force to draw information to ourselves. Um, and that's why the suggested post on Tumblr is always so relevant for you. Um, so, climbing back to where we should be, how am I going to solve Yang Mills? Well, let's get back to how do we switch realities? Because I started posting on Tumblr saying, you know what, it might be simpler for me to just switch reality in my dreams so that Yang Mills is just solved in my world and we could just have that solution, right? Why do I have to do it? Well, what if we're not switching realities? What if the reason why scientific innovation is so appearing to often be random and outside of normal causality, always needing this spark of genius, this moment of inspiration, this Isaac Newton watching the apple fall from the tree, to understand, oh wait, gravity. What if those moments weren't coming into our world like normal right now? Like somehow cosmic rays are fucking it up. Then we're not getting the inspiration we need to be able to have the ideas and connect the things that we need to connect to get to where we need to go. The reason I'm even proposing such a thing is because if you read occult materials that purport to either be from higher beings or what's obviously aliens, like if you read the text, then like it's obviously aliens. I'm not saying that obviously aliens exist. I up to question. But if you read these books, then they're written from the point of view that the writer is an alien. There. Well, they're basically saying things like, you already have the answer. You just need to grasp some spiritual fundamentals and run that by what you already know. Your science is missing something that your spirituality already has. And the thing is, that's not really something that a particle physicist wants to hear whenever they're trying to, get their Large Hadron Collider to work. Serious equipment made of serious billions of dollars, not really a spiritual moment for some people. Or a different sort of spiritual moment. So, what if reality shifting is different than we think it is? My idea is that we don't even need to shift to a different reality. We don't need to have an alternate reality where it got solved. We solve it in this reality, but we solve it out of order. My idea is that we will simply solve it with time travel. Now, it's hard to talk about this because, it's just... I feel a lot of pressure when I talk about time travel, I guess, to get it all right on time. But the idea behind the time travel is simply that we don't have all the right scientists in the same room together to have the right kind of discussion to produce the idea that needs to happen to make the next jump in physics. Specifically, they're still trying to figure out how elementary physics work. Elementary being, there are elementary level particles. They're like the subatomic particles, quarks, things that quarks are made of, the God particle, the muon, gluons, other ons. These things are fundamental parts of reality, and that fundamental particle physics is actually different than quantum physics. Quantum physics is more at the atomic level, from my understanding. Atomic and subatomic, like, positrons and neutrons, and electrons, but elementary particles are what electrons are made of. neutrons are made of. So even inside, underneath that, we're getting some Ant-Man shit here. And, you know, not a bad way to start thinking. I think that movie starts you thinking in places you wouldn't otherwise think. Because, yes, they kind of solve that with time travel, too. Or at least they say time travel's related. I have been solving this problem since before I received it. There. I think that Yang Mills, the problem is that, or rather, part of what my dreams have been saying, but since before I got this problem, like since last year, y'all, has been that scientists don't fundamentally understand the subatomic particles of reality on the elementary level, because they're trying to build a 3D cube, essentially, in linear time. So first, second, and third dimensions being 3D, and then the fourth dimension being time. Well, this doesn't square with string theory, where you start seeing like more dimensions than that. What happens on the fifth dimension? What happens on the sixth dimension? And it's a little hard to even explain what the fifth dimension is after the fourth dimension is defined as time. But basically start thinking about alternates or individual movements and what those could have been. If you know anything about version control software, start kind of thinking in those sort of terms. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But the right people need to be in the right room to talk about this. The problem is that they are not all going to be alive at once. I have a big stack of papers from a dead nuclear physicist named Jerry Silverman. And I got them last year. Yeah, I've talked to y'all about some of these. Here, I'll go grab some. I separated them out, but I don't remember what the different piles are. This is like 1/5 of them. I have hundreds of these papers. And basically they were available on eBay, and I felt like I needed them. Is a good summary of what happened. Also, it's just, I don't understand how much cooler you could get than this declassified, unclassified document from the Defense Documentation Center. Like, there's just so much stuff in here, but let's see, I think that, here we go. This is February 27th, 1958, Robert P. Hurst. Calculations of coherent atomic scattering factors from open configuration wave functions, a dissertation. Presented to the faculty of the Graduate School of the University of Texas in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy by Robert P. Hurst, B.S., M.A., Austin, Texas, May 1958. That's what all that says. Nice little bound thing. They made them into books. I've never actually seen the dissertation before I got this here. Trying to see, yeah, so we do have a little bit of diagramming that's happening in here, which is nice. This helps me think. It's actually the older stuff that tends to have more representational diagrams like this. They start just doing graphs after that. This is the strangest little printout, by the way. It's actually printed on photo paper. So yeah, the media itself is just really interesting going through these. But I collected this stack of papers from a nuclear physicist for seemingly no reason. I just wanted to know more about the stuff. And for some reason, I decided that the best way to do that would be to collect 250 individual documents that are very random, that I really can't read the bulk of. Gonna be honest. But once I got them, I started getting ideas, because I'm an occultist, and also, like, Jerry's a ghost. It often happens when you're dead. So, not going to get too much into the ghost stuff. Probably not going to write too much in my blog about that. That's for y'all. But, there is such thing as a 5-dimensional cube and a 6-dimensional cube. I've actually seen a Rubik's Cube solved to 5 dimensions and then 6 dimensions. And the resulting video that I saw last year made me draw something out. You can see it here. That's where I take the cube and kind of expand it out to where each face of the cube has its kind of links out to another cube, projects out to another cube. Because what you have whenever you start getting to the 5th and 6th dimensions is space folding in a way that we're not comfortable with. I'm not going to say not familiar with, because it does it all the time in front of us. We just like to look at it like it's not doing anything wobbly. Human eyes like to see everything nice and grid-like and structured and cubey. We like it. But if you ever look and pay attention at all the things that you're seeing around you, like, space is not straight up and down, side to side. It's all warpish as well. A classic example would be the road when it's hot. Above the hot road, you'll see the heat just ripple and warp the actual reality that you see. That is space itself curving in a way that warps your own vision. Well, it kind of naturally does that all the time around you, but your brain and eyes correct for it. Your brain and eyes correct for all kinds of things. Like, you don't see your own blind spots. Instead, they're kind of photoshopped out. There's your eyesight photoshops out your own nose. You never really see it in the middle unless you like look really hard, and then it still kind of fades out. Your brain is doing a big job on reality to make it processable to you, and that means filtering out a lot. One of the things that filters out is the fact that everything's kind of wobbly. But instead, it kind of makes it look like everything's normal. That helps us get around. So, since we don't see the wobble, because our brain takes away that warped appearance, we have trouble when we detect it with science, because we don't really understand how to visualize it. Our brains have decided to visualize things in a very structured and orderly way for the last 100 or 200 years. Science has looked through very grid-colored glasses. It's kind of like if you look at witchcraft, where they look at things through very spooky colored glasses whenever sometimes we don't really need that. You'll find that science is looking through things in a grid paper like overlay that sometimes doesn't need that. Or in this case, Yang Mills is supposed to be solving things out to 4 dimensions. I think it needs to solve it out to 6. 4 dimensions is linear time and 3D space. But at the level of subatomic particles, at the level of elementary physics, at the level of quantum reality, you cannot do linear time at quantum reality. It doesn't work. Linear time is itself an illusion that we project on reality to deal with it. I started solving this problem a couple months ago, even though it landed on my dash a couple weeks ago. That's my example of how linear time is an illusion. This has not been happening in order. But what order would it ever happen in? So, if you take into account a 6 layer, then things start correcting. Now, there is one thing I want to say, which is, I think that there is actually what you'll find to be 8 levels of reality, but 2 of them kind of cancel each other out in how you look at reality if you extrapolate it to 6 levels. Just like if you look at reality extrapolated to 4 levels, you know, linear time, it all looks normal and regular to us. We don't see the 5th level at this level. Like, we're never going to climb or ascend to some sort of, like, gilded hall with angels singing or anything. It's just that, like, if we saw the 5th level of reality, we'd be like, oh, is that it? In my opinion. It wouldn't seem as warped as you'd think. Mostly because, like, if you want to see a 2-dimensional version of reality, all you have to do is look at the shadows around. Those are what happens when a 3-dimensional object casts a shadow onto a 2-dimensional surface. That is a 3-dimensional object being projected onto a 2-dimensional surface. That is what a shadow is. If you only ever saw shadows, the world would still make sense, but it would just be shadows. But if you could see what was casting the shadows, the world would make sense. It's just that you would know that what you were seeing before, like, were just not just shadows, they were shadows. Like, it's different levels of information being presented to you. I know that, like, part of what I am saying does, like, cry back to the whole, being in a cave and being shown shadows cast about the wall, and, like, if one of those people sitting in the cave actually saw the outside, the people who were in the cave all that time would think he was crazy. Well, that's kind of how it goes. How do you take a concept from the next level of reality, the next stage of science, the next whatever, and present it to the current society, to the society before it, actually? Like, how do you present that level to the level of reality that precedes it? How do you show it? You have to cast some sort of shadow, basically. I have to do some sort of shadow play to help people understand what this is seemingly the answer. So it's interesting that this is happening. I hope that this ends up helping physics. I have so many cats. Oh my god, they're watching me now. Get over here. He's just been sitting at my feet this whole time. And then Storm's been right here just listening to me, sitting on the other side of the chair, and now Holly is weaving around my feet, beeping at me. So I think it's about time for me to wrap it up. That's about 30 minutes worth of particle physics and subatomic physics and time travel. You're welcome. Ciao.